time.
But Jen, as you know, you worked at the State Department, you're now at the White House. As you know, it's one thing to be discreet and not release all the information to the public for sensitive reasons, whether it's classified or diplomacy or whatever, but it's another thing to flat out lie to the news media and to the American public, which is what your predecessor, Victoria Nuland, did when she was asked back in 2013 whether or not there were secret bilateral government-to-government negotiations going on with Iran, and she said no. That was a lie, right?
Well, Wolf, I think you'd have to speak to my predecessor about that. What I can tell you is that what I was doing, not just that day when this question was asked, the fact is a week before this, I proactively talked through every aspect of the back channel at the State Department briefing. I was also supportive of and involved with the briefing of press and the stories that came out before that. So my role was providing information. I was an advocate of that, about the back channel. It was at the time where we could do that because of where the diplomatic negotiations were. There's a long history for decades, again, of not being able to provide information when it's at a sensitive time that could have an impact. And that certainly was the case earlier that year.
But then there was this subsequent, when you were the State Department spokeswoman, subsequent exchange you had with James Rosen of Fox when he asked why Victoria Nuland had lied about those direct bilateral negotiations. I'll play the clip once again. Listen to this.
Is it the policy of the State Department where the preservation of secrecy of secret negotiations is concerned to lie in order to achieve that goal?
James, I think there are times where diplomacy needs privacy in order to progress.
So the accusation against you, Jen, and I want to give you a chance to respond, is that you were defending that earlier lie from Victoria Nuland.
Well, again, I think you can speak to Toria or anyone else about what she knew or didn't know about the negotiations. I don't have that information. But what I was doing then, that day, and in the week prior, was providing information about the back channel, about the negotiations from the years past. I do believe, as I said during that exchange, that there are certainly times where negotiations and important diplomatic discussions require not briefing the public on what's happening. Not because we don't want to have that conversation with you, Wolf, but because that means all parties are weighing in. It becomes a public debate instead of a private negotiation that, as you know from covering these types of negotiations for years, is often needed in order to make progress.
The point being, though, that it's one thing not to release all of the information you need for national security reasons or diplomacy or whatever. It's another thing to actually lie to the news media and to the American public as a result of that. Is it ever justified, this is my final question because I know you got to run, is it ever justified for a U.S. government spokesperson to lie to the American people?
I think that's a fundamental value that I have always followed, is not to, and providing as much information as you possibly can, including being an advocate for when you could provide more, which is exactly what I did in the case of briefing on the Iran back channel.
Jen Psaki.